hamburgers are made with the highest quality ingredients. Made fresh and by hand. Made with a smile to put a smile on your face. Made for special occasions or no occasion at all. Made with gratitude for every customer we get to serve. Most of all, every hamburger, cheeseburger, and double-double is made to order just for you.
Rats. You should call Noble Way Pest Control. They really know how to get rid of rodents in your walls.
I'm going to thenobleway.com and taking care of this right now.
Good idea.
How do we get rid of you?
You'll never get rid of me.
Maybe we should stop watching scary movies.
Good idea.
Yay, no rats.
Hi, this is Richard Morales of JJM Home Buyers, and I buy houses cash. If you own a house and want to sell it fast at a fair price, call me at 916-758-8660. That's 916-758-8660. I can pay cash and close fast. I buy houses in any condition, any price range, and any location. I am not a realtor or associated with a realty company. I am a private real estate investor who buys several houses a month, and I want to buy more. I buy inherited houses, divorce houses, behind in payment houses. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Do you own a house that is trashed and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, because I love buying junky houses. I buy vacant houses, abandoned houses, condemned houses, and foreclosure houses. If you own a house and want to sell it fast, call me at 916-758-8660. That's 916-758-8660.
And curb the development of Alzheimer's. Coffee slows the buildup of a protein that marks the beginning of the disease. Decaf works too. That's good news. Carlos Santana has canceled his December concert dates because of an unscheduled heart procedure. The musician wasn't feeling well over the weekend and is taking time off to replenish and rest. We wish him a full and quick recovery.
Football, the great outdoors. Some people say fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Sponsored by BioNTech and Pfizer.
Last year, just say, Alexa, play North Pole Radio on iHeart-Radio. Enjoy Santa's very own radio station that's perfect for the whole family. Alexa, play North Pole Radio on iHeart-Radio.
And joy filled the town, except for Scrooge with his permanent frown. The gift of a Peloton bike touched his soul without doubt.
Work, Peloton.
When your workout's a joy, it's a joy to work out.
You can do it.
The original Peloton bike at our best price ever, $39 a month. All access membership separate. Terms apply. See.
They're the best. Agreed. So I went to Kohl's and got 40% off cuddled and throws for movie night and 40% off outerwear.
Ooh, for caroling?
More like sledding. Also got an Amazon Echo Show 8 so the kids can bake with Grandma.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That was the extra 25% I saved and the Kohl's cash I got.
I take it saving's one of your favorite traditions, too.
You know it. Select styles. Offers on December 8th. Some exclusions apply. Amazon coupons do not apply. See store or post.com for details.
He's really helped me a lot just in general, just overall, and I've done the same just from communicating and talking to him. So I think he believes in me and I believe in myself. So it's just really like just picking up where we left off. Like if there's things throughout the week, any other week of the season when I am playing and he's playing, and I'll talk to him about it if it's something I'm not really on the same page with. So he's always kind of there for me to be able to piggyback ideas off of or whatever. He might see something a different way. So I don't think anything's changed from how he is to me now than what he was before.
Aziz says that linebacker group is very close. They've been playing good football the past 3 games, but Drake Greenlaw re-aggravated his groin and Warner with his hamstring, so that group's going to be put to the test. Without those two, they did not practice today. Tonight, 7-4 Dallas at 5-6 New Orleans. Amari Cooper off the COVID list for the Cowboys. He'll play tonight. Head coach Mike McCarthy in the COVID protocol. So Dan Quinn will step in as interim coach for Dallas. And Steph Curry named the Western Conference NBA Player of the Month for the 10th time in his career. Kevin Durant of Brooklyn named the Eastern Conference Player of the Month.
Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C Sports. This is Charles with Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. According to people who love sports, it's all fair and level. War today is a beautiful December the 2nd, 2021. As we say, Greenlaw, the port days, bonjour, de vini vidi vici. Welcome to the show. I love saying welcome to the show. It's all fair and level war. A lot of good things coming to you all over the sports universe. Really do appreciate that. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, just tell them that Charlton of Big C Sports sent you. Also, all around the world, you can follow Big C Sports on 18 podcast applications all over the universe. And when I say 18, I kind of realize I got to get in better exercise shape because I tend to run out of breath when I count to 18, but I'm going to try. You can follow Big C and give me some praise for not running out of breath. You can try to follow that. You can follow Big C Sports Podcast on Google Podcasts, Alexa, Spotify, Spreaker Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeart-Radio Podcast, Castbox, Deezer Podcast. You can find us on Podcast Addict, also Podchaser. You try saying that and see if you can last to 10. Give me some praise for at least getting to 10. It's all fair in level war. You can also follow Big C Sports on Geosavon Podcast out of London, England, Podtail, YouTube Podcast, Hubhopper, Stitcher Podcast, Radio Line Podcast, Repod Podcast, as well as Luminary Podcast. And that takes a lot right there. So give me some praise for that. I got to catch my breath. I say, give me some praise. We tried eating 2 big tacos and then do the Big C Sports Podcast. You can also follow Big C Sports on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon and Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Comcast, Xfinity, Comcast, and Effect TV, all fair and level war. There's a lot of good things going on in the world of sports. I love talking about so many things. My family legacy on my mother's side, my great-grandmother, called her Mama, very savvy grandmother, great-grandmother, did everything possible to keep the family together. And then my great-grandfather, Pop, he was a former Negro League baseball player, known for making the best moonshine in the history of the universe. Often said, boy, get out of that barn. Give that some praise. I think they think it's crazy when I say that. I also love my grandmother, called her Mud Deer. She was a seer. Actually could help see things in people that you didn't even know about them until she told you about them. Really do appreciate all of her love and affection. And then Hezekiah, my grandfather, did everything possible to keep the family together. My beautiful mother helped start 2 Head Start programs in Northern California, also helped us win the Little League Championship of the universe. Give that mama some praise. Always saying rise and shine. No matter what you do, you got to always rise. You got to always shine. Really appreciate that. And then my father's side, the patriarch of the family, Albert Curry, a pastor, had 2 service stations in Oakland, California, and ran 2 churches, as well as built the 3rd church in Central California. And then my grandmother, the matriarch of the family on my father's side, Alberta Curry, helped my grandfather start the churches, also the service stations, did everything possible to keep the family together. Really appreciate that. And my father, retired military, Air Force, fighter pilot, chief mechanic, made sure that planes could fly high so we could stay safe. And my brother Todd, with that bombastic voice, always making a loud noise whenever he walked in the room. I love getting my stats from my son, Malcolm, all over the NBA. College kid, one of the most handsome kids in the history of the universe. And my beautiful daughter, Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. Pretty lucky to have the 2 most handsome children and beautiful children in the world. Give that some praise. Always helping with coaches that came to the West Coast, heading set up and getting their information. And then Big C with all of his wealth of knowledge in the past. Give everybody some praise. Give it all praise, praise, praise. Really do appreciate that with Big C Sports Podcast. You know, I love also saying with Big C Sports, and people talk about how they're going to do things in the sports world. And there's a lot of good things coming to Big C Sports. And that's why I always love saying, let's get ready to rumble. And I say, welcome to the show, FP-nominated Big C Sports Podcast. No scripts, no 3-way teleprompters, no producer in my ear. I do it with my higher self, with God's providence. I always say I produce the show, I direct the topics, I broadcast every show. I do all of the sound effects that come from the studio platform. Really love giving out the sound effects. And then on top of that, I do the best I can at providing stats. The commercials are done by the agency out of New York City, outside what I do on the pre-roll and also the mid-rolls. And then I also do the play-by-play, Steph Curry for 3! Going to hear some of that on Friday as they get revenge over the Phoenix Suns. Really looking forward to that game. And then I upload the show to the platform, which goes out to 18 podcast platforms. Really, that's a lot all over the universe. 18 podcast platforms. Give that some praise. Not just in California, but all over the world. Really do appreciate that with Big C Sports Podcast. And I've never missed a show since starting Big C Sports September 12, 2015. And I love quoting from the Bible, the book of Genesis chapter. Well, I'm going to go into it. I know I talked to a lot of pastors, but in the book of Genesis chapter 13, verse 15, it says, "For all the land that thou seest will I give you, and thy seed forever." In the book of James chapter 4, verse 2, said, "We have not because we ask not." So if you want something, just make sure you ask. That's the best way to get it. You got to ask. If you don't ask, chances are you're not going to get it. So give the Bible some praise. Love giving the Bible some praise. All's fair in love and war. You know, there's so many things that I look forward to when doing Big C Sports Podcast. I want to make sure that we hit on that. There's a lot of talk of what's going on in the world of college football, and people want to know who's going to win the game. But what I also love winning the game is our military veterans. We have a Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. If you know any veterans going through issues, just pick up the phone and ask for help for our veterans. But sometimes you don't know where to go. Pick up the phone, call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. You can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. And let's give our first responders some praise. Thank you to all of our first responders. Without their help, there'd be no one reaching out when people call and need some help. It's all fair in love and war. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, Effect TV, Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports all over the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light." Open your cell phone and say, "Play Big C Sports Podcast." You will see our app pop up all over the world. Really do appreciate that. And I also want to say, for the real estate segment of Big C Sports Podcast, really love working in the real estate industry. For people looking for real estate in your neck of the woods, go to valleyhomesweekly.com. Also, in your neck of the woods, the nationalrealestatepost.com. Find out what's going on in the market in real estate. And then for mortgages all over the country, go to mortgagedailynews.com. That's mortgagedailynews.com. You can find out what's going on in real estate. If you're looking for anyone looking to refinance or find out more about how to buy real estate, go 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Give that some praise. Looking to bring on 10,000 real estate agents all over the country to transact business with the Big C team. It's all fair in love and war. I'm going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When I come back, going to talk more about some things that are going on in the world of sports. But I do want to say this segment is sponsored by Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol, 100% on this game. Sports fans, when you're watching the big game, you want to eat it with the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with what's all this exotic meats. I'm sure there'll be some exotic meats for the Dallas and New Orleans game tonight. It's all fair in level war. We'll take the Big C pause, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 18 podcast applications all over the universe. Really do appreciate that. It's all fair and level war. I know we have some football tonight for Thursday night, and it's really what used to be like the marquee matchup. Dallas Cowboys, game's already underway, visiting the New Orleans Saints tonight for Thursday night football, and it's kicking off to week 13. Both teams are still in the NFL playoff picture with just over a month remaining. It's amazing. We were all talking about how they're going to add one more game to the regular season, and it seems like I can't get enough football. But the Cowboys, at least for now, they lead the NFC East with a 7-4 record. They appear to be in line for the postseason. And then you have the Washington football team. They're also getting some groove. They're getting their groove back. They've won a couple of games in a row. They're trying to get back to Las Vegas over the weekend, down in Sunday in the desert, and we'll see what happens with them trying to chase down the Cowboys. But think about this. They've cut the lead to 2 games in the division in the last 2 weeks alone. Meanwhile, the Saints, New Orleans Saints, who that say they're going to beat them Saints? like everybody lately, they're 5-6 on the season, and they're still in the hunt. The kickoff happened already. Caesars Superdome is 8:20 p.m. kickoff, East Coast time, 5:20 p.m. here on the West Coast. Now, Dallas is favored by 6 points in the latest, I guess you would say, odds that came out of Las Vegas, but they've dropped a couple of games. Dallas has been struggling lately. This is a team that's had a lot of injuries, so you really can't go by the points but it also seems like New Orleans is pretty much decimated. But think about this. When you look at the sports book out of Caesar Sportsbook, the over-under is 46. The Cowboys haven't scored a lot of points lately, and neither has New Orleans. So before you lock in any Cowboys versus Saints picks, be sure to just pay attention to what's going on with some of the players that have been injured in this game coming up. I mean, there's so many people that say put down money on the Cowboys the last couple of weeks. They got that beat down by Denver. Think about it. No one thought they would lose to Denver. They were down 30-0 at one time versus the Denver Broncos. And then they came back and had a big win over the Atlanta Falcons. I believe it was 43-3. And they've kind of been on the tailspin, losing that game. I think there were 28 overall penalties when they lost their game to the Raiders. I mean, that was like a Las Vegas special, in my opinion. And people tend to put money on the Cowboys when they're favored. So you got the Saints versus Cowboys. The spread is a 6 points by Dallas over a team in New Orleans that doesn't really have a quarterback situation worked out. Dallas has covered 6 straight games against the NFC opponents, and they're favored by 6. They've covered. Think about that. They've covered 6 straight games against NFC opponents. Okay? Their losses, the last 2 losses, came against the AFC, against the Chiefs, and also the Raiders. New Orleans, now think about this for people who don't mind losing money. New Orleans is 9-1-1 in the Saints' last 11 Thursday night games. But that's also going back to Drew touchdown Brees back in the day. You can't read that into this team. Now, in my opinion, why the Cowboys can cover, they're coming off 2 losses in a row, and they'll have the benefit of being the healthier team this week. Ezekiel Elliott avoided missing time after suffering a knee injury last week, while it appears that C.D. Lamb, concussion protocol, who knows how well he's going to play, and the great Amari Cooper from COVID will return to action after they both missed this Thanksgiving loss to the Las Vegas Special Raiders. And what did Brent Musburger say? Jackpot, baby! Well, how did he know what was going on in that game? 28 penalties. Come on. Most against the Raiders. Most against the Cowboys at home. How does a home team get most penalties in a game? So people have their own suspicions about how that happened. Now, Dallas, and some people don't mind it, they're going to be without the head coach, Mike McCarthy, because of COVID. And then Cedric Wilson, who has an ankle issue, coming off a 100-yard game, but interim head coach Dan Quinn, who has a lot of experience in the league, has experience, and Kellen Moore should have no issues returning the number 1 offense in the league to his top receiving options. Dak Prescott does a lot better when he has his crew and his staple of receivers. But I want to ask you also, on Thursday Night Football, how the Saints have been marching in 9-1-1 against the spread on Thursday night. But that's going back to touchdown Drew Brees. This is a different team. But after stagnant play from the offense, the Saints appear to be ready to turn to Taysom Hill, which is not a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution. He's going to be under center. He took his first team practice reps ahead of Travis Simeon. And when you think about it, he's just a hit away from being knocked out of a game again because he lowers his head too much and goes in for the hit as opposed to doing what Drew touchdown Brees would do back in the day. He would slide. He would go down, and the NFL protects you when you go down. Hill hasn't learned that. He tries to play like he's a fullback, and he welcomes the punishment. That's not good for the Saints. So when you think about it, his presence is going to make New Orleans a multi-dimensional team on offense. And then after defense has loaded the box to shut down the run game, the Saints won 3 of the 4 games that Hill started at quarterback. That was last season, and they went 3-1 against the spread. Okay? The Saints defense is also going to benefit from not being put in a really tough spot by a struggling offense, and that side of the ball has been the strongest unit for New Orleans all year. What you got to look at if you're the betting type, defensive end Marcus Davenport has 4.5 sacks over the last 3 games, so you know he gets after the quarterback. Dak Prescott hasn't been given the best protection lately either by that Dallas offensive line, but I think having his core receivers back is going to help him stay afoot this week, or at least tonight, for the Dallas Cowboys. And when you think about it, backup offensive tackle Terrence Steele was placed on a COVID-19 list. So Dak Prescott's been taken down 6 times over the last 2 games. So Davenport and Cameron Jordan could have a lot of success getting to the backfield. If they don't get sacks on Dak Prescott, they're going to at least get some pressures on him. So we'll see what happens in that game. It's all fair and level 1. People have their own thoughts about it. I'm going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And I'm going to come back and talk more about what's going on in the world of football and why so many people, they still think that this Dallas team is a Super Bowl type team like the days of Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and then Michael Irvin. I don't know if they are. We'll take the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. In the words of former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 18 podcast applications all over the universe. Really do appreciate that. 18 is a big number. Try counting to 18. But also more big numbers coming to you this week on NFL. There's a lot of good things. I want to talk about that. We talked about Cowboys. They're in New Orleans tonight. This is the Saints team. They're just banged up. When Taysom Hill's your starting quarterback, that's not who they plan on. They wanted Jameis Winston. Obviously, he's out with the knee issue, and they're going to go back and forth. So give them a chance to have some explosive plays with Taysom Hill. But he's also just one hit from being knocked out of a game because he doesn't know how to slide. Dak Prescott's been under pressure the last 2 weeks. I think the Cowboys' offensive line will keep him upright this week, or at least tonight, against the Saints' tough defense. All fair and level war. I want to look at a couple of other games that I'm going to cover before I do tomorrow's Big C's NFL Pick'em games over the weekend. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are 11-point favorites at the Atlanta Falcons over the weekend coming up. Going to preview that game more tomorrow. But the Buccaneers wide receiver touchdown Antonio Brown did not practice again due to his high ankle injury. And then head coach Bruce Arians said he's already doubtful to play this weekend. And then joining him on the sideline were wide receivers Jalen Darden, concussion protocol, and safety Mike Edwards has a knee issue. So the defensive lineman William Golston has a wrist problem. Everybody's banged up, it seems. Offensive guard Aaron Stein has a knee issue. Limited participants, including offensive guard Ollie Murphy, abdomen issue. Defensive lineman Vita Vea has a knee issue. Linebacker Devin White, quadriceps. There's a lot of players that are just banged up this part of the season. That's partly why some of the players, they did not want to go to that 17th game. You're just like duct tape and water bottles keeping everybody together. On the other side of the line of scrimmage, the Atlanta Falcons, they saw linebacker Deion Jones practice fully on Wednesday for the first time after he missed the team's Week 12 win over Jacksonville with a shoulder injury. Meanwhile, Cordell Patterson and Grady Jarrett both missed the session. They were merely given Veterans Day off. Defensive lineman Jonathan Bullitt also missed practice with an ankle issue. So those are games where a lot of players are injured. I feel, after seeing this team in person, the Arizona Cardinals, they're an 8-point favorite at the Chicago Bears, also sponsored by the Big C Burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with, what's all that exotic meat? And we know that the Bear and the Cardinal are exotic meat. It's all fair and level where you got to have the Big C Burger. It's on a private menu. Now, offensive lineman Justin Pugh is only, the Cardinals missed practice this Wednesday due to a medical issue as he set out with a calf injury. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best receivers in football, but he's been sidelined for many games this year. Still have the hamstring issue. Quarterback, the great touchdown Kyler Murray, also been sidelined for several games with an ankle injury. And then safety James Wiggins has a knee injury. They're limited participants. It looks like Hopkins and Murray, that they are on track to return to the field. How healthy will they be with ankle and also hamstring issues? The Bears, and this is one where I think Colt McCoy, he's already ready as a backup. They don't want to hurt, in just my opinion, Kyler Murray. They've been winning without him. They're going to bring him in eventually to let him get back. But you don't need him against the Bears. You're going to beat the Bears anyway. That's just my opinion. Now, the Bears have several players sit out of practice on Wednesday. Among them, defensive lineman Mario Edwards Jr. Rib issue, has ice on his ribs. Wide receiver Marquise Goodwin has a foot and rib issues. That's taking those hits over them, going over the middle against those strong defensive backs. And then defensive lineman Akeem Hicks has an ankle injury. Tight end Cole Kemet has a groin problem. I have a groin problem, and I know how hard it can be. If your groin don't feel good, you probably won't play good. If that makes sense, yeah. That's like a rhyme. If the groin don't feel good, you probably don't play good. Okay, that's a stupid rhyme, but I think it makes sense if you think about it. But this is a team that they can win games anyway. They've been doing it. Wide receiver Allen Robinson, hamstring issue. Linebacker Waquan Smith has a Why is everybody pulling hamstrings? Maybe they should eat more Big C burgers. I hear they has a lot of vitamins and minerals that help keep your hamstrings strong. It's all fair level work. And running back Damian Williams has a calf issue. Quarterback Justin Fields was limited. His ribs are also packed on ice, but it appears he's going to be on track to start this week. How effective will he be? He's a young man, and he's one of those run-pass option quarterbacks. Yeah, people cheer. They cheer when he runs the ball, but you take a lot of unnecessary punishment. Go to the ground. Just go to the ground like the Jim McMahon used to do back in the day with the 85 Bears. Go to the ground and live to see another play. Los Angeles Chargers. When you think about the Chargers, I would be missed if my producer didn't hit the Los Angeles Chargers. There's that lightning bolt. Give my producer some praise for that. You got to have the lightning bolts when you talk about the Chargers. At Cincinnati Bengals, this is not the game that they played back in the 80s when it was minus 20 degrees. Dan Fouts was going back to could barely hold the ball. But think about it. Cincinnati's favored by 3. Both quarterbacks were studs in college. Touchdown Joe Burrow came out of LSU, won a national championship. And, I mean, obviously they have everything going for them. They're up 1 week, and then they're down the next touchdown. You know, Herbert doing his thing up at Justin Herbert from Oregon, and both guys were successful in college. But the Chargers rookie cornerback, Asante Samuel Jr., set out of Wednesday's practice session. He had a concussion. Offensive guard Matt Sealer, also defensive back Trey Marshall. They were limited with ankle injuries. I guess the NFL needs another week of football, right? The Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals, had several players who missed practice on Wednesday. Running back Chris Evans, ankle injury. Center Trey Hopkins, ankle injury. Defensive end Khalid Kareem has an illness. Cornerback Darius Phillips has a calf and a knee problem. Offensive tackle Riley Rice has an ankle problem. And then wide receiver Auden Tate has a calf issue. There's a lot of things that happen in players. They can put on some type of cream they can put on them called Hurt No More. No, it hurts. They just can't feel it until after the game, like touchdown Aaron Rodgers with a bad toe, and he still was able to throw for over 300 yards. Everybody's different. It's all fair and level work. Minnesota Vikings, what a game in San Francisco, and Kirk Cousins lined up under the guard, and then they had to call a timeout because he wasn't under the center, and they were trying to go and force score. I think the 49er defense had him shut down pretty good when he needed it. Davis is a bend but don't break defense. I like the 49ers when they run the ball. But Minnesota, this is the team. They're a 7-point favorite at Detroit. Detroit's going to win a game eventually. I don't think it's going to be this game. But they played so many teams close. Tucker kicked a 66-yard field goal, I believe, in week 1 to beat the Lions in Detroit. And Minnesota may need a field goal to win this game. I know people might think they're 7-point favorites. What do you mean a field goal? Well, the Vikings may be without star running back Dalvin Cook. If you don't think he makes a difference, you're not paying attention. For a couple of weeks due to his shoulder injury, and he set out practice on Wednesday. They had to bring him off the field in San Francisco Levi Stadium. He was hitting the backfield. People were thinking maybe it was a knee, but no, it was up on his upper extremities. The shoulder injury is what they called it. And the odd thing, they brought a cart under the field for a shoulder injury. Most guys with a shoulder injury, they walk off the field. They brought a cart, and it's all fair and level where maybe it was hurting to walk. But joining him missing practice, this is why Detroit, there might be a field goal game. Linebacker Anthony Barr has a knee and a hamstring. Offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw has an ankle issue. Linebacker Ryan Connolly, quadriceps issue. I mean, there's so many issues. Cornerback Mackenzie Alexander, he has ribs on his ice. Defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, a knee injury. Do you see why this might be a game for the bettors out of Las Vegas to see that Detroit might have a chance? I mean, they have nothing to lose. They're expected to lose anyway. Detroit was without 6 players at practice to begin the week, including running back DeAndre Swift. He's still dealing with a knee injury that knocked him out of the Thanksgiving Day game against Chicago. Linebacker Trey Flowers, knee injury. Among those also missing along with tackle Penny Sewell. And then receiver Kadaro Hodge. They're both dealing with an illness. Offensive tackle Matt Nelson, an ankle was eliminated. So you might say, why does it matter if some of their starters are banged up? Because they haven't won a game anyway. They had a tie with Pittsburgh. But that tells you that Detroit is at home. Both teams are dealing with issues. It's a divisional game, and you got to win eventually. And if you're going to win, why not beat the Vikings when Dalvin Cook is not running the football? You might want to give Detroit some praise in the Dome. I said give them some praise in the Dome. It might be, could be. You never know. I think 7 points are too much for the Vikings to be favored by in that game. New York Giants at Miami Dolphins. Think about that. Dolphins are 5-point favorite. 8 players were missing from New York's first practice of the week Wednesday, including receivers Kadarius Toney has a quad issue. Sterling Shepard has a quad, along with defensive back Abdurrahman Jackson has a quad. And one player who was at practice was quarterback Daniel Jones, who participated in a limited basis. Jones is dealing with a neck injury that puts his status for kickoff in question, with Miami in question also. I think head coach Joe Judge, he did say that he expects Jones to practice throughout the week, and that leaves the door open for him to play. You know, they can put some cream on his neck, make him feel better. The Dolphins, 5-point favorites. Cornerback Trill Williams set out Wednesday. Why? Hamstring injury. Aren't guys learning how to stretch? Aren't guys learning how to get the best treatment before a game? Why are so many guys pulling hamstrings? Muscles are too hard and too strong to stay on the body. It's all fair and level war. Offensive lineman Robert Hunt has a back issue. Safety Brandon Jones has an ankle and an elbow injury. Running back Phillip Lindsay has an ankle issue. There's just a lot of things going on in the NFL. Players, teams have bye weeks. But when you're banged up, you're banged up. And it doesn't seem to matter. You got to play through the pain. A lot of guys have played through the pain. Watch the movie North Dallas 40, if that makes sense to you from way back in the day. Philadelphia Eagles, 6.5-point favorite at the New York Jets. Man, the Eagles should have beat the Giants, but people, a couple of touchdowns were dropped at the end of that game. Jalen Hurts did his thing. He'll do his thing again this week. Running back Jordan Howard has a knee issue. Running back Boston Scott has an illness. Wide receiver Devontae Smith also has an illness and did not practice for the Eagles on Wednesday. Philly had several limited practice players as well. Included in that group were defensive end Derek Barnett has rib issues. Linebacker TJ Edwards has an ankle issue. And then quarterback Jalen Touchdown Hurts has an ankle problem. Keep that in mind because he runs around a lot, buying more time for the receivers to get open. Defensive end Taron Jackson has a neck issue. Running back Miles Sanders has an ankle issue. And defensive end Josh Sweat has a knee. So everybody's banged up in the NFL. It's like a walking mesh unit, and we still have several weeks to go. For the New York Jets, who that say they're going to beat them Jets? Oh, no, that would be New Orleans. But for the Jets wide receiver, when you think about the Jets, this is a team that's trying to always kind of make confusion in the league. It still thumps me how they beat down Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago. And they've had some upset wins too. But the Jets wide receiver, Corey Davis, has a groin issue. You got to stress the groin. It's hard to run if you don't. And then defensive lineman Sheldon Rankins has a knee issue. Tight end Trevon Wesco has an ankle missed practice Wednesday. A lot of good things are happening. You can go down the line. Indianapolis Colts favored by 9 at the Houston Texans. The Colts had a few notable players that set out practice on Wednesday. They were defensive tackle DeForest Buckner, who's a stud, has a knee and a foot issue. Tight end Jack Doyle has a knee problem. Center Ryan Kelly also has a banged up knee. Darius Leonard, ankle and wrist issue. There's just a lot of players that are banged up. And when you realize this, NFL has players banged up all the time. You just rarely see it. They don't spend a lot of time focusing on how many players are always banged up when it comes to a football game. And also, you look at receiver Danny Amendola has a knee issue. Terrence Brooks has a hamstring. And receiver Chris Conley has an illness. Wide receiver Brandon Cooks illness also. And running back David Johnson has a thigh issue. So it's just like a mash unit. Texas defensive lineman Jonathan Greenlaw also has a foot. And Jacoby Martin has a shin issue. They were limited in practice. I'm telling you, this is the team coming up. The next team. Ron Rivera has their Washington football team playing well. They are at the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Raiders are 2.5-point favorite. How do you believe in the Raiders being a 2.5-point favorite when they just beat the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day? They found a way to play, but they won because they had a lot of penalties that gave them, I believe, at least 7 first downs. That probably is going to help any team win. But Washington football team at the Raiders. Raiders favored by 2.5. Safety Landon College has a foot issue. Center Tyler Larson has a knee problem. Running back J.D. McKissick has a concussion. And then offensive guard Wes Schnetzweser has an ankle problem, as well as cornerback Benjamin St. Justy has a concussion. Did not practice Wednesday. For Washington, running back Antonio Gibson has a shin issue. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel with a groin problem. So many players are injured. Tight end Logan Thomas has a hamstring issue, limited in practice. Now, how do the Raiders get a 2.5-point favorite? This is a field goal game for the Raiders. Defensive end Carl Nassib has a knee problem. Linebacker Patrick Osawara, hamstring. Tight end Darren Waller, back and knee issues. He's a solid player for the Raiders, but he sat out of practice on Wednesday. And then wide receiver touchdown Deshaun Jackson has a calf issue. Linebacker Nick Kowalski, ankle problem. And then cornerback Cassine Nixon also has an ankle issue. They were limited in practice. You got to give the MASH unit a lot of praise when it comes to NFL football players. Everybody's doing what they can to stay healthy and playing these games. And I know it's tough, but that's part of the game. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Los Angeles Rams. Man, the Rams need a win. They need a win big time. Cornerback Shaquille Griffin, concussion. Linebacker Miles Jack has a knee issue. Defensive tackle Devon Hamilton, knee issue. Linebacker Damian Wilson, an ankle issue. Defensive tackle Malcolm Brown out with a toe. Touchdown Aaron Rodgers had a toe issue. He still threw for 300 yards. It's a tough game, and a lot of people are banged up. Cornerback Tyson Campbell was limited with his shoulder injury. When you look at the Rams, their running back Darrell Henderson Jr. has a thigh problem. They need to run the ball more. I think they've been trying to throw the ball too much with Matthew Stafford in the Green Bay game. I know they fell behind, but they were trying to show, in my opinion, that he was worth the draft. Giving up all those draft picks for what they brought in, Matthew Stafford, didn't work out, hasn't worked out so far. They got to run the ball more, but Darrell Henderson Jr. has a thigh issue. Maybe he'll be able to play by the game. Cornerback David Long Jr. has an illness, set out of practice Wednesday. Wide receiver touchdown Odell Beckham got a touchdown in Green Bay, but was limited with a hip injury, while wide receiver Ben Swarnick has a back issue, was limited as well. Odell Beckham Jr. can show that he could get deep, got deep with the Green Bay Packers, got a touchdown over the top, and Matthew Stafford found him deep and was able to race it to the end zone, but now he has a hip issue. Maybe they'll put some hurt no more on that before a kickoff. We will see. Baltimore Ravens, 4.5-point favorite at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has to burn the tape. They can't have Big Ben back throwing over 30 times a game. You got Najee Harris for a reason. You got to run the ball, trust your defense. They were blown out by Cincinnati. A game that they were just, I kind of feel bad for Big Ben. I've liked his career. Been to 3 Super Bowls. 2-1 on those Super Bowls. But this is a game, it's not really for men who don't have mobility. The Ravens had a lengthy Wednesday injury report. Cornerback Anthony Everett, shoulder and ankle issues. Tight end Nick Boyle, a knee issue. Center Bradley Bozeman has a shin laceration. Offensive lineman Patrick McCurry, ankle. Offensive tackle Cedric Ogburgi has a thigh. And then fullback Patrick Rickard has a foot and thigh issue. Cornerback Chris Ristry has a thigh issue. And Tavon Young has an illness set out. When you think about the Steelers, man, what do you say about the Steelers? Mike Tomlin's a great coach, never had a losing season. But this might be his first. It's one thing to go 8-8. This team might be looking at 8-9. The Steelers quarterback Big Ben Roethlisberger sat out of practice with a pectoral and right shoulder injuries. Joining him, sideline cornerback Joe Hayden. I want to go back to Big Ben. He's not going to make it past the end of the year. Because when the Steelers fall out of playoff contention, if they do, there's no need in having them play out the season. They got some quarterbacks on the bench. You got to figure out how to get Haskins in and just take your lumps. Because you got to get him figured out if he's going to be trade material next year or if you're going to run with him next year. So I think by the time the Steelers are not out of playoff contention, this division is going down to Baltimore and also Cincinnati. The Steelers aren't going to be in there. But their plan for Ben to pad his numbers seems like that to me, but it's not helping the team if he's not mobile. Linebacker Robert Spillman has a knee issue. Offensive guard Trey Turner, it's a coach's decision. And then offensive tackle Zach Banner has an illness. Wide receiver Chase Claypool was limited with toe injury. And I believe he wants the Steelers to play more music at practice. Yeah, I'm talking about practice. You just got to be in the playbook. The Steelers, they're a run football team. They're a smash-mouth kind of football team, but that's in the past. I don't know if anything can help them right now. The attrition is catching up to them. And when their marquee player is banged up and can't throw the ball more than 30 yards downfield, the defense can kind of rush to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, force him to throw fast before receivers get open, and that's going to hurt the Steelers. The San Francisco 49ers, they're a 3.5-point favorite at Seattle. They're going to cover that 3.5. It's just amazing. When Seattle brought in a 36-year-old running back in Adrian Peterson, that tells you their run game is not there. Now, linebacker Dre Greenlaw has a groin issue. Cornerback Devontae Harris, concussion protocol. Wide receiver, the great Deebo Samuel, who's a stud for the 49ers, has a slight groin pull. You saw him pull up in the game against Minnesota last week. Running back Trey Sermon, ankle injury, but he'll play. Linebacker Fred Warner, hamstring, did not practice for the 49ers Wednesday. It doesn't mean they won't have him come kickoff in Seattle. Running back Jamaica Hasty, he's a stud, has an ankle issue. Defensive lineman Maurice Hurst has a calf issue. We're limited participants in practice, but I think they'll play. Offensively for the Seattle Seahawks, they have been such a stellar football organization, playoff team last year. Offensive lineman Kyle Fuller has an ankle problem, was the only player who did not practice on Wednesday for the Seahawks. But they have plenty of limited participants. And offensive guard Gabe Jackson has a knee issue. Offensive guard Damian Lewis elbow. And then wide receiver DK Metcalf has a foot issue. One of the fastest receivers in the league, but if he has a hitch in his giddy up, going to make it tough for him to get downfield. And then Russell touchdown Houdini Wilson's been overthrowing receivers anyway since he had that finger surgery. And then Alex Collins, abdomen issue. Running backs Rashad Perry, hamstring. And offensive tackle Brandon Shell has a shoulder issue. I still think the 49ers, if Shanahan goes in there and just runs the football, don't let Jimmy G throw more than 30 or 40 yards downfield. 10, 15-yard outs, get yards after the catch. That's been their winning formula. They did it when they went to the Super Bowl. No need in trying to show that you're going to keep Jimmy G as your quarterback. The Niners are definitely going to win this game unless some shenanigans take place, and they will be a playoff team if they run the ball first. Become a run-heavy team when you pass. Go 10, 15-yard passes. Don't throw 30 and 40 yards downfield. Jimmy G, the ball floats on him. Don't do that. Just run the ball. You'll win the game. The Broncos, when you think about this matchup, Denver Broncos at Kansas City, the Chiefs are favored by 10, and they may just get it because they found Stella's got her groove back, if that makes sense to you. Now, the Broncos entering this important matchup, banged up. They need Terrell Davis to come out of retirement. Running back Melvin Gordon has a shoulder and hip injury. Remember, I've been thinking about Super Bowl 33. Terrell Davis ran for 200 yards with a concussion in 3 quarters. I mean, he may have a good quarter left in him. Bring him back to the Broncos. But think about it. Offensive tackle Calvin Anderson has an ankle and knee injury. Tight end Eric Schubert has an ankle injury. Offensive guard Dawson Risner, back issues. There's a lot of times when players are just banged up. Offensive lineman Quinn Menarez has a knee injury. Linebacker Baron Burling has a back problem. You have to find out who you can count on in these games. For the Chiefs, cornerback Rashad Fenton was the only player who missed practice due to a knee injury. That's why they're going to cover the spread. Offensive lineman Lucas Niang was limited with a rib issue. And before I said they're going to cover the spread, NFL doesn't make money when teams cover. They make money when people bet, they're a 10-point favorite, they're going to win. Touchdown, Patrick Mahomes doing his thing. And there's no money in them covering the spread. There's only money if the Denver Broncos can hang in there within a touchdown. That's how they'll make their money. It's all fair and level war. We don't know what's going to happen in that situation, but 10 points is a lot, especially against a division team. But I just told you so many players are banged up on the Denver Broncos, it may not even matter. I want to bring up something to you that's going to bring an attention to what's going on in the world of football, Big C Sports. It's called NFTs, non-fungible tokens. The NFL football universe, Buffalo Bills, and the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football. This is something that you're going to see more athletes getting into in teams. The Buffalo Bills are launching the NFT, which is non-fungible tokens program during Monday Night Football. And the Bills host the Patriots Monday night. It's going to be Buffalo's first home game at a night game at a full stadium since 2018. It was Week 8 versus the Patriots. Another reason why the division matchup is going to be so special, because the Bills and the NFL, they're partnering to offer Bills fans limited digital commemorative tickets in the form of non-fungible tokens called NFT. A friend of mine told me about that, and I really appreciate hearing what's going on in the world of NFT. There's so many more people that are part of it. Bills Mafia have 2 opportunities to collect the NFTs at the game. You got to buy the tickets in order for them to give it to you. But the Bills fans who purchase tickets to attend the Bills versus Patriots Monday Night Football game on Monday, December the 6th, they're going to receive a complimentary virtual commemorative ticket via the Ticketmaster marketplace. So you can Google more about that. The NFTs in the NFL as cryptocurrency are part of what's going on in the world of sports. Give that some praise. Give it praise all over the world. We're going to take what's called the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. When we come back, we're going to talk more about some college football and where things stand in the college football universe. With the former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. All right, we are back after the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 18 podcast applications all over the universe. When you think about college football, FCS oftentimes, former Division I AA, tends to get overlooked at times, but I'm just going to go over a couple of matchups that are coming up over this weekend, starting in the division, what's called the FCS. I call it division, the former 1 AA. Sam Houston, they will play Incarnate Ward, and there's a lot of points that should be scored in that game, but Sam Houston will probably be able to stop the Lions at least one time and come up with a big win in that game to move on to the next round of what the FBS is going to start doing in a couple of years. They talk about 4 teams going to get in, and the FCS and the BCS. I mean, the Bowl Championship Series, these 4 games, 4 teams is not enough. In the FCS, they start with 24 teams. Missouri State in another bracket versus Montana State. Missouri State will be the highest ranked team, or maybe one of the toughest teams, not the highest ranked, but maybe one of the toughest teams outside of Sacramento State that Montana State have faced all season, but they also face Montana. So I'm going to pull that Montana State's going to win that game. They lost to Sacramento State, and they also lost to Montana. So I think they're ready for a team like Missouri State. Villanova, they have a game with Holy Cross. Holy Cross, Batman! And the Wildcats are over their hiccups. They've had a couple of hiccups earlier in the way they played their games versus William and Mary. But I think that they'll be able to pull that game off. The Sacramento State Hornets, the team that I'm picking to win the whole thing in the FCS playoffs, they will play South Dakota State. They will host that in Northern California. Their first playoff game in Northern California. Isn't that something? There's a lot of Pac-12 teams, the Oregon and also the Utah game is going to be played down in Las Vegas. So the first team in California to play in a playoff game in the FCS, that will be Sacramento State this weekend versus the South Dakota State. And I'm looking for the Sacramento State Hornets. They are very explosive offensively, very tough defensively. The Jackrabbits are a good team, but I don't think they measure up to the talent and the speed that Sacramento State plays with. And Sacramento State will most likely win that game and go on and advance in the playoffs. I'm telling you, there's something about James Madison over Southeast Louisiana and Cole Kelly meeting freezing temperatures. Playing those games outside of California, you're going to have some tough temperatures to overcome, but some schools are used to that. Montana also out of the Big Sky. Over Northern Iowa, I'm picking Montana, the Grizzlies, to win over Northern Iowa, along with Sacramento State. Montana coming out of the Big Sky, as well as Montana State. I'm picking the Big Sky to go 3-0 in this second round of playoffs. The Panthers National Championship bus is going to run out of gas in Missoula, which is a great place for a college football game. Kennesaw State, they will have a game versus East Tennessee State. I'm going to go with Kennesaw State with a win over East Tennessee State. Could be the best game in some people feel of the second round. Might be back and forth down to the wire. Going to go with Kennesaw State to get the upset. Not even an upset, but just a close win over East Tennessee State. North Dakota State, the Bison, I'm looking at them to play Sacramento State, the Hornets, in a rematch of what happened back in 1988 when both teams met in the playoffs. But North Dakota State will most likely beat South Dakota. Last week, the Bison beat the Coyotes 52-24 at home, and I like their chances of advancing. It's all fair in level where I know so many people are looking at what's happening in the world of college football, and they want to know who's going to get in. Is it going to be Georgia or Alabama? Is it going to be Michigan or Cincinnati? Everybody has their own opinion about that. I just want to see some good football. It's all fair and level war. So give the FCS some praise. Give it praise. We know oftentimes they get overlooked, but I want to give them some praise because they play a good brand of football too. And I'm going to run just a quick glance of the college championship weekend for the conferences, the college football fans guide the championship weekend, and everybody has their own opinion about who should get in to the Final Four. I think the FCS does it right because they give 24 teams a chance to win a championship. Just to run down some of the games that are on schedule, you have in the ACC, there's so many teams. Number 15, Pittsburgh versus number 16, Wake Forest. In the Big Ten, you have number 2, Michigan versus number 13, Iowa. In the Pac-10, you have a matchup at the Pac-12, beg your pardon, number 10, Oregon versus number 17, Utah. How is Utah ranked 7 spots behind Oregon after just beating them 38-7? It's hard to breathe up near the Wasatch Mountains. They'll be in Las Vegas in a dome. I'm going to go with Oregon in this one. In the SEC, you have number 1, Georgia versus number 3, Alabama. I'm going to go with Alabama to knock off the Georgia Bulldogs. And that game will be sponsored by the Big C Burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with, what's all those exotic meats? Last I heard, an elephant and a bulldog are exotic. I don't tell people what to eat. I'm going with Nick Saban to do what he's always done. He's beaten everybody that's been on his staff at times. And I know they had that loss at A&M, too many turnovers. I think Bryce Young's going to win the Heisman Trophy. Georgia's a good football team. But this same Georgia football team, they were held without an offensive touchdown against Clemson, which is not even in the ACC championship game. And believe it or not, that might have been the toughest game that Georgia played all season. I know people say, oh, they're a big underdog, 6.5-point underdog. Don't buy that. Georgia's a good team. But for Nick Saban, he's not going to be outcoached. Their toughest game was against their in-state rival, Auburn. And they found a way with Bryce Young to win that game after having so many miscues, players kicked out of a game for targeting. It just was a bad game, and they're not going to play 2 bad games in a row. I'm going to go with Alabama to knock off Georgia, and that will guarantee the SEC of 2 teams in the playoffs. That's just my opinion. In the Big 12, Oklahoma, number 5, Oklahoma State, they're playing number 9, Baylor. And an upset alert. Probably not going to happen, but Baylor could do it. They could pull it off. But I'm just going to sneak in Oklahoma State. They're lucky to be here. They're here because Lincoln Riley was interviewing for the USC job, and they just didn't play sharp. They had a fumble punt return inside the 10-yard line, and Oklahoma State went in and scored and won that game. But that's against an Oklahoma team where their coaching staff was not 100% focused. Looking back, people can see, why was Oklahoma not as sharp as they normally are? But I think Gundy, he's 40 over 40. He's a man. I think they'll get it done over Baylor, but I'm not so sure because Baylor is a very talented team also. In the American Conference Championship, number 4, Cincinnati. A team that's number 4 that beat Tulsa by 7 points. How will they handle an Alabama, Michigan, or Georgia? Maybe they'll get in. Maybe they won't. But Houston's the real deal. Houston's ranked number 21. They have nothing to lose. They've been nipping this game. It's been in the back of their mind. Houston lost the first game to Texas Tech, and they've been on a roll ever since. This game is also sponsored by the Big C Burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with, what's all this exotic meats? And last I checked, a Bearcat and a Cougar were exotic meats. So I don't even know if Cincinnati's going to make it in. I know their conference wants them to, and I know officials can be, if you get those officials that ref the Raiders and Cowboys game, it's all friend level war. They'll find a way for Cincinnati to go undefeated, but Houston might be knocking on the door at the end of the game. Just watch the Tulsa film. Conference USA, University of Texas, San Antonio versus Western Kentucky. That should be a barn burner there. In the MAC Conference, Northern Illinois versus Kent State. That should be another good game. In the Sun Belt, you have number 24, Louisiana versus Appalachian State. Louisiana's been on the roll since they lost the season opener to Texas. In the Mountain West Conference, number 19, San Diego State, the Aztecs versus Utah State, in a game that will shape what happens as a conference champion is crowned on the West Coast. Give all the conference champions some praise. Give them all praise, praise, praise. I can't wait to see some football over the weekend. Even in California, we have the regional high school football playoffs kicking off. A lot of good teams are looking forward to moving on to where they can call themselves a champion. So everybody has their own opinion about it. Who knows who's going to win? It's all fair and love and war. I look forward to just seeing good things happen in the world of sports. I'm going to turn to the world of some NBA basketball. Some good news for the good old boys from Golden State, Steph Curry, and also the good old boy, his former partner, the great Kevin Durant for the Brooklyn Nets. They've been named the Western Conference and Eastern Conference Players of the Month in the month of November. Golden State point guard Steph Curry, maybe the greatest shooter in the game, at least from three, and the Brooklyn Nets forward Kevin Durant named NBA Players of the Month. And you think about Golden State Warriors, point guard Steph Curry, and Brooklyn Nets forward Kevin Durant, there was a time when they were on the same team in Golden State. Isn't that something? Two of the best early leading candidates for the most valuable player in the NBA were named first team NBA Western Conference and first team NBA Eastern Conference Players of the Month. Give that praise. They deserve it. Two sharpshooters, two guys that come to play every night no matter what's going on, whether their players are injured or deciding to hold out. But great basketball players. Curry, the defending scoring title champion, he earned the Western Conference Player of the Month award for leading the Warriors to an 18-3 record, averaging 28 points, 6.6 assists, and also 6 rebounds per game in October and November. He shot 45% from the field, 41% from three during that span. He scored 40-plus points 4 times, including an NBA season-high 50 points against the Atlanta Hawks in early November. You know I got to give Curry, with a name like Curry, give him some praise. The best last name in the history of the NBA is the great Steph Curry, giving him praise in the NBA. Going to the Eastern Conference, Kevin Durant leads the Nets to an Eastern Conference record best 15-6 record in the first 2 months of the season, and averaged a league-high 29 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 6 assists per game, shooting 54% from the field. Durant has been named Player of the Month 15 times in his career, averaging 36 minutes a game. And also the Nets head coach Steve Nash would like to lighten Durant's load a little bit, especially with Durant having played with a right shoulder issue, even though it doesn't seem to affect him shooting the ball. He can drop it in the bucket anywhere on the court. Said it's not ideal to have him shoulder the burden, but if you want to win games, you got to figure out how to get Durant doing this thing. Also for the Lakers, LeBron James clears health and safety protocol after returning negative tests, so he didn't sit out 10 games or 10 days like most athletes are told to. LeBron James has been cleared to return to the lineup for the Los Angeles Lakers in the game against the LA Clippers on Friday night. In a brief stint to the NBA's health and safety protocol, the league announced that today he's returned 8 negative tests since returning to the Los Angeles Lakers Tuesday afternoon, and sources told many media outlets the Lakers star returned an initial positive COVID-19 test, and he missed the Sacramento Kings game on Tuesday. In a statement Thursday, the league said that James did in fact test positive, and the NBA detailed the chain of events that led him to missing the Kings game and being reinstated. So he was placed on COVID protocols on Tuesday, November 30th, after a series of tests delivered conflicting results. I guess they can call that a false positive. So think about what happens with the Lakers. The Lakers beat the Kings without LeBron James. It was 117-92. Had an off day on Wednesday in which James took to Twitter and talked about his displeasure. But COVID's very serious. President Biden's been saying there's more strains that have hit California. People make sure that you get your vaccinations. It's not something that people can really question science over. For people who are vaccinated, thank God for that. Get vaccinated. At least talk to your doctors about it. Make sure you're not out there Googling how to stay healthy. Talk to your doctors. Listen to your medical staff. So it's good when you have the star players back in action for the NBA, and that's a good sign when LeBron James was able to test negative and they had some false positive tests. I don't know for sure, but that's the word coming out. All fair and level. Thursday night, December the 2nd, 2021, NBA matchups already underway. Chicago at the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden should be jumping. That game's already on NBA TV. Defending NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks at the Toronto Raptors up in Canada. That game's already underway. The OKC Thunder down south at the Memphis Grizzlies. Game already tipped off. Detroit, the Bad Boys are in the Valley of the Sun. The Phoenix Suns trying to extend their winning streak. It's 6 p.m. already tipped off. And Phoenix most likely will take care of Detroit and going to Golden State on Friday before they get their winning streak snapped. And then San Antonio at the Portland Trailblazers. That game tips off at 7 o'clock p.m. tonight. It's all fair and level work. Give NBA basketball some praise. Talk about college football, FCS, and the BCS teams. Also some NFL football. Dallas Cowboys already underway down in New Orleans. Who that says they're going to beat them Saints? We'll find out. Maybe Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He was known as telling Ali, you flow like a butterfly, you sting like a bee. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so full of all these big cheeseburgers, I'm light on my feet. I'm pretty, I can't possibly be beat. That's why I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, all fair and level war. My beautiful mama always says that never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, pick up the phone and ask for help. Because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you, on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.